Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is my pleasure to welcome you to Temple Emeth and to our Shabbat Morning Service. We are gathered both in person and virtually here at the Rabbi Louis J. Siegel Sanctuary in Teaneck, New Jersey, and it's a pleasure to have you as part of our service. If you're joining us in person, I invite you at this time to find a copy of Mishkan Tefillah near your seat. It is the Siddur we're using. And if you're joining us on live stream, I invite you to find a copy of Mishkan Tefillah. Perhaps you have one at home and you can bring it to the screen at this time, or perhaps you'd like to access a digital version of the Siddur by going, preferably on a second device, to our live stream page, emeth.org/livestream, and then clicking on the link for Mishkan Tefillah for Shabbat weekdays and festivals. That will bring you through to a flipbook edition of our Siddur, and you'll be able to follow along with every song, prayer, and most importantly, page number in the Siddur, so you'll be a full participant in the service. Also, if you're watching us on live stream, now's the perfect time to enter something into the chat or live stream section of the platform. You can put your name or your location, Shabbat Shalom, or some other greeting in the chat so that others who are watching on live stream can see that you're there and you can feel part of the online community that we've gathered on this Shabbat morning. Our service begins on page 192. We invite you to turn to page 192 and join together in our opening song. We join together in Matovu.
Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la la la, yalla la, yalla la 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 la. Matovu alecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael. Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la. Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la. Vani berav chasadecha v'veitecha eshtachal ve'el heichal kodechecha b'yiratecha b'yiratecha. Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la. Adonai ahavti me'on beitecha, kol mishkan kivotecha, v'ani eshtachadevechra, every chalifnei Adonai yosi. Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 yalla la, yalla la 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 la. Va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai, et ratzon, Eloi b'rav chasdecha, haneni be'emet yishecha. Ay la 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 la, yalla la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la.
We turn at this time to page 194, where we offer the blessing which thanks God for the miracle of the human body. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh chol basar, umafli la'asot. As we turn the page, we join together in the blessing that thanks God for the soul. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God, and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai, veruach kol basar ish. We turn now to page 198, where we find the Nesim B'chol Yom, the blessings for our daily miracles. We recite these in succession, beginning on page 198 and continuing on the next several even-numbered pages.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan l'sechel bina le'evchin ben yom u'ben layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokef kifufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Kaharet al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, amechin mitzadei gaber. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, anoten la'ef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamabir sheina me'inai u'numa me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani bat chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Oter Yisrael b'tifara.
We turn now to page 204 as we join together in the blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai hamalamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Having offered the blessing for the study of Torah, we turn now to page 206 and we recite an excerpt of Torah, oral Torah from the Talmud, in fulfillment of the blessing. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. We turn now in our Siddur to page 215. On page 215 we find the Ashrei prayer, which we recite responsively. Ashrei yoshvei beitecha od yahalelu chasela.
Ashrei ham shekacha lo, Ashrei ham she'Adonai Elohav.
Tehila leDavid aromimcha Elohai hamelech, v'avarcha shimcha leolam va'ed.
B'chol yom avarcheka v'halala shimcha leolam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai u'mehula me'od, v'ligdulato ein cheker.
Dor ledor yishabach ma'asecha, u'gvuratecha yagidu.
Hadar kavod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha.
V'zuz noratecha yomeru, u'dulatcha saprena.
Zecher rav tuvcha yabi'u, v'tzidkatcha yiranenu.
Chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech apayim u'tochased.
Tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav al kol ma'asav.
Yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yivarchucha.
Kevod malchutcha yomeru, ugvratecha yidaberu.
Leodia livnei Adam gvurotav, u'chvod adar malchutav.
Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha b'chol dor v'ador.
Somech Adonai lechol anoflim, v'zokef lechol akfufim.
Einei chol elecha yisaberu, v'ata noten lehem et ochlam be'ito.
Et yadecha u'masbia lechol chai ratzon.
Tzadik Adonai b'chol derecha, v'chasid b'chol ma'asav.
Karov Adonai lechol kora'av, lechol asher yikra'u ve'emet.
Ritzon Yereav Ya'aseh, bet Shabbatam Yishma v'yoshiyem.
Shomer Adonai et kol oavav, et kol hashayim yashmid.
and sovereignty, sanctity, grandeur, and glory always, we offer our devotion, open our hearts in acclamation. Baruch atah Adonai el melech gadol batishbachot el hahoraot adon haniflaot habocher b'shirei zimra melech el chei haolamim. Praised are you, sovereign of wonders, crowned in adoration, delighting in song, eternal majesty.
Yitkadah Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'almad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechan v'yomechan v'chayei t'chol beit Yisrael b'gadla uvizman kariv v'miru. Amen. Yehi Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olam me'olam haya Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitbar, v'yidrama, v'yitnasei, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei d'kudusha b'richu, leila min kol bechata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alama, v'yimiru.
Amen. We continue with the Baruch Hu on page 226. Please rise.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam avad.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvorei choshech Oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim. Uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or sha'asita yifa'arucha sela. Or chadash al Tzion ta'ir, V'niskechu lanu mehira le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai yotzer ha-me'orot. On page 231, once or twice in a lifetime, a man or woman may choose a radical leaving having heard Lech Lecha, go forth. God disturbs us toward our destiny by hard events and by freedom's now urgent voice, which explode and confirm who we are. We don't like leaving, but God loves becoming. Baruch atah Adonai habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Malchutah Le'olam avad.
Please be seated.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha v'chol levavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol me'odecha ve'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha beveitecha uv'lachtecha v'derech Uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot ayadecha ve'ayu le'totafot beinenecha u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'yisharecha leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'eloechem ani Adonai Eloechem Asher otzeiti etchem me'eret Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem emet.
Our service continues on page 239. Emet, there is no place where you are not, even in the wilderness. There is your word. Emet, that pen strokes of lightning, white fire, black flame, stir the soul's passion, guide our sacred way. True and enduring is Torah. Your truth for us is certain and established, now and forevermore. Like Moses, Miriam, and all Israel, we sing out and rejoice.
Ya la la la, la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha Nedar b'kodesh Noah tehilot osei fele Yalai 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 Shira chadasha shipchu geulim l'shimecha al sfat hayam yachad kulam ha'ardu ve'himlichu ve'amiru yalalai 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 Adonai Yimelach le'olam va'ed Adonai Yimelach le'olam va'ed Adonai Yimelach le'olam va'ed le'olam va'ed Tzur Yisrael Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael Kuma, 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 kuma be'ezrat Yisrael Ufedei chinumecha Yehuda v'Yisrael Ufedei chinumecha Yehuda v'Yisrael Koleinu Adonai Tzavot Shemo Kadosh Yisrael Baruch Ata Adonai Ga'al Yisrael.
We turn now to page 242. Please rise if you are able for the tefillah.
Adonai sifatai tiftachu fi yagi tehilatecha Adonai open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Akol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot U'Mevi Gula Livnei B'neihem Leman Shemo B'Yava Melech Ozer Mashiach Magen Baruch Ata Adonai Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah Ata Gibor Le'olam Adonai Michaye Akol Atarav Le'oshia Mashiv Aruach Umarid Hagashem Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed Michaye Akol Berachamim Rabim Samech Noflim Verofech Cholim Umatir Asurim Umikayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Ba'al Gvurot Umida Melach Melach Memit Umichayeh Umasmiach Yeshua V'nemanata lachayot hakol Baruch Ata Adonai Michaye Akol.
Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam, kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom. Kakatuv al yad leviacha v'karazeh el zeh ve'amar.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech kol haaretz kivodo.
Adir Adirenu Adonai Adonenu Ma'adir Shimcha b'chol haaretz.
Baruch kivod Adonai mimekomo.
Echad hu Eloheinu hu Avinu hu Malkeinu hu Mosheinu v'hu yashmeinu barachamav le'enei kol chai ani Adonai Elohechem.
Yimelech Adonai le'olam Elohai Tzion L'dor v'dor Hallelujah L'dor v'dor
L'dor v'dor
L'dor v'dor L'dor v'dor Nagid God lecha L'dor v'dor
L'dor v'dor
L'dor v'dor L'dor v'dor Nagid God lecha ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לעולם לעולם ועד. לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור,
לדור ודור נגיד God לך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד God לך, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Amen. Please be seated. We turn now to page 250, and to honor Shabbat, we look to the middle of the page and we join with Cantor Tillam in singing Vishamru.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael, Vishamru et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, L'dorotam berit olam, Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael, Oti le'olam, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat, Lasot et ha-Shabbat le'olam, Ki sheishet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et haaretz uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinathash.
We turn now to page 254. Find favor, Adonai, our God, with your people Israel, and accept their prayer in love. May the worship of your people Israel always be acceptable. God, who is near to all who call, turn lovingly to your servants, pour out your Spirit upon us. Let our eyes behold your loving return to Zion. Blessed are you, Adonai, whose presence returns to Zion. Baruch atah Adonai hamachazir shechinato letzion. We turn now to page 259 as we join together in a prayer for peace in the middle of the page. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of our world. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai hamivarech et amo Yisrael ba'shalom. We take a moment now for silent prayer for Tfilat Halev, offering the prayer of our hearts. Inspirational readings for this time are found on pages 260 and 261.
Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Ya la 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 la, la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la, ya la la, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracham.
Our service continues now with Seder Kriyat Torah, our service for the reading of the Torah, which is found in the Siddur beginning on page 363. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the strangers in your cities, to hear, to learn, to revere Adonai your God, to observe faithfully the words of this Torah, and let their children who do not yet know it hear, that they too may learn to revere Adonai your God. We continue in the middle of the next page. Please rise.
Susherim Ashichem Useu Pitrei Olam V'Yavo Melech HaKavod Mi Uzen Melech HaKavod Adonai Tzvaot U'Melech HaKavod Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shema, Galul Adonai iti, Ulimo Shema Yachdav, Lecha Adonai Agdila, Yagdira, Yadiveret, Yanetzach God, Ki chol bashamayim uvaretz, Ki chol bashamayim uvaretz, Lecha Adonai amamlacha, Yamid nasi, Lecha lirosh. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kadsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu והשתחוו להר קדשו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קדשו רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קדשו. Please be seated. Somebody had to do it.
I would have done it eventually. This week's Torah portion is Parshat Vayetze. Vayetze literally means he left, because it is a reference to our patriarch Jacob leaving his home and going somewhere new, in his case to his uncle's household, across an entire fertile plain from Beersheba to Haran. Now, he's not the first wanderer in our tradition. Abraham leaves his hometown to go to a place that God will show him, along with Sarah and Lot, his nephew, and their household. But the circumstances between Abraham and Jacob are remarkably different. Abraham goes because God says to go. Jacob leaves because he is under threat of violence. His brother has said something very loud and clear, which was, "I'm going to kill you." And Jacob and the rest of the family take him seriously and plan for his departure. And so these circumstances of wandering, I think, are significant. I'll speak about them a little bit more at length after the Torah reading. But as we read the story of Jacob spending his first night alone, we can understand it not just as a divine experience, because certainly it is. At this moment, he must have been so afraid. He has the words and the comfort of God that God will keep all the promises that God makes to him. But it's also important to talk about that fear. He's not just afraid because he's alone. He's afraid because his life has been threatened and he is going to a new place to seek safety and shelter and refuge. You can follow along as I read from the beginning of Parashat Vayetze. If you're here in the sanctuary, the beginning of the portion is in the Torah commentary on page 194. And if you are following us at home on live stream and you have a revised Torah commentary at home, you can find the Torah portion on page 195. Oh, and let me announce you. Put your hand right. Let me move this and put your hand right here so it doesn't roll shut on me. For the honor of the Torah and the Aliyah, we call upon Carlene Fleischman.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Vayetze Yaakov mi be'er shava vayelech charana vayifka b'makom vayalen sham kiva hashemesh vayikach me'avnei hamakom vayaseh mirashotav Vayishkav b'makom hahu, v'achalom v'hinei sulam mutzav artza v'rosho magia hashamayma, v'hinei malachei Elohim olim v'yordim bo, v'hinei Adonai nitzav alav, v'yomar Ani Adonai Elohei Avraham Avicha Velohei Yitzchak Haaretz Asher Ata Shochev Aleha Lecha Etnena Ulezarecha V'haya Zarecha Ka'afar Haaretz ופרצת ימה בקדמה וצפונה ונגבה, ונברחו בך כל משפחות האדמה ובזרעך. והנה אנוכי עמך ושמרתיך בכל אשר תלך והשיב אותיך אל האדמה הזאת, כי לא אעזובך עד אשר אם עשיתי את אשר דיברתי לך. ויקץ יעקב משנתו ויאמר אכן יש אדוני במקום הזה, ואנוכי לא ידעתי. וירא ויאמר מה נורא המקום הזה, אין זה כי אם בית אלוהים וזה שער השמיים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natah b'tzidkenu. Baruch atah Adonai noteinu Torah.
Amen. Yasher Cohen, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
This time our thoughts turn to those in need of healing as we prepare to offer a mishaberach, a prayer for healing found in your Siddur on page 371. If you are thinking of someone in need of healing watching us on live stream, I invite you to enter the name of your loved one in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. And if you're here in the sanctuary, I invite you to share the name of someone you're thinking of out loud or in your heart at this time. As we sing the Mishberach together, we'll view on the screen those names of members of our congregation and their loved ones for whom we also pray for healing. We turn now to page 371 and we join together in the Mishberach.
Mikor habracha limatenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha levatenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We continue now with the lifting and dressing of the Torah. Please rise if you are able for Hag Ben Galila at the bottom of page 370.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. יאללה לילה לילה יאללה לילה לילה יאללה לילה
The Haftarah portion is found in the Torah commentaries here in the sanctuary on page 344, and in the revised Torah commentaries that many of you have at home on page 214. The prophet Hosea is one of the prophets who expects Israel to improve and is not shy about offering words of rebuke when he sees that Israel has fallen short. This is clearly one of those passages. It begins with a reference to our Torah portion that Jacob is tending sheep in Aram, a clear reference to the next scene after the one I read out loud, where he arrives in Padan Aram and meets his uncle Laban and makes a deal with him to tend sheep for 7 years in exchange for being able to marry Laban's daughter Rachel. But the prophet then goes in another direction. The prophet takes this metaphor and then speaks about how Israel has fallen short, and Hosea is common for using marriage imagery in his prophecy, and so we'll hear a little of all of this as we hear from the Haftarah, which begins once again on page 344 or page 214. Rachel Eastman is going to read the Haftarah for us this morning. Okay, here's this and.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratzav v'direihem ha'ne'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Then Jacob had to flee to the land of Aram. There Israel served for a wife. For a wife he had to guard sheep. But when the Lord brought Israel up from Egypt, it was through a prophet. Through a prophet they were guarded. Ephraim gave bitter offense, and his Lord cast his crimes upon him and requited him for his mockery. When Ephraim spoke piety, he was exalted in Israel, but he incurred guilt through Baal, and so he died. And now they go on sinning. They have made them molten images, idols by their skill, from their silver. Holy the work of craftsmen, yet for those who appoint men to sacrifice, they are wont to kiss calves. Assuredly they shall be like morning clouds, like dew so early gone, like chaff whirled away from the threshing floor, and like smoke from a lattice. Only I, the Lord, have been your God, ever since the land of Egypt. You have never known a true God but me. You have never had a helper other than me. I looked after you in the desert, in a thirsty land. When they grazed, they were sated. When they were sated, they grew haughty, and so they forgot me. So I am become like a lion to them, like a leopard I lurk on the way. Like a bear robbed of her young, I attack them and rip open the casing of their hearts. I will devour them there like a lion. The beasts of the field shall mangle them. You are undone, O Israel. You had no help but me. Where now is your king? Let him save you. Where are the chieftains in all your towns, whom you demanded, give me a king and officers? I give you kings in my ire and take them away in my wrath. Ephraim's guilt is bound up, his sin is stored away. Pangs of childbirth assail him, and the babe is not wise, for this is no time to survive at the birth stool of babes. From Sheol itself I will save them, redeem them from very death. Where, O death, are your plagues? Your pestilence where, O Sheol? Revenge shall be far from my thoughts. For though he flourish among reeds, a blast, a wind of the Lord, shall come blowing up from the wilderness. His fountains shall be parched, his spring dried up. That wind shall plunder treasures, even every lovely object. Samaria must bear her guilt, for she has defied her God. They shall fall by the sword. Their infants shall be dashed to death, and their women with child ripped open. Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have fallen because of your sin. Take words with you and return to the Lord. Say to him, forgive all guilt and accept what is good. Instead of bulls, we will pay the offering of our lips. Assyria shall not save us. No more will we ride on steeds, nor ever again will we call our handiwork our God, since in you alone orphans find pity. I will heal their affliction. Generously will I take them back in love, for my anger has turned away from them. I will be to Israel like dew. He shall blossom like the lily. He shall strike root like a Lebanon tree. His boughs shall spread out far. His beauty shall be like the olive trees, his fragrance like that of Lebanon. They who sit in his shade shall be revived. They shall bring to life new grain. They shall blossom like the vine. His scent shall be like the wine of Lebanon. Ephraim shall say, what more have I to do with idols? When I respond and look to him, I become like a verdant cypress. Your fruit is provided by me. He who is wise will consider these words. He who is prudent will take note of them. For the paths of the Lord are smooth. The righteous can walk on them, while sinners stumble on them. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik b'chol hadarot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber u'mekayem, shekal devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah v'al ha'avodah, v'al hanvim v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu liktusha v'limnucha lechavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umvorchim otach yitbarach shimcha b'ficho chai tamid le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh haShabbat.
We continue now as we prepare to return the Torah to the Ark. We turn to page 374. Please rise. Yahalu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado.
Adaret v'shamayim vayarem keramo tehillah lecha chazita livnei Yisrael am kirofo. Hallelujah, hallelujah,
Please be seated. Before we continue, we just want to take a moment to say Shabbat Shalom to Cantor Tillum. She is leaving the service a little early today because this weekend marks her anniversary. So Mazel Tov, Cantor, and enjoy having some guests over to celebrate.
Thank you.
Arami Oved Avi. My father was a wandering Aramaean. It is a verse from the book of Deuteronomy that has become popularized by its inclusion in the Passover Haggadah. Arami Oved Avi are the first words of a recounting of history that begins with this week's Torah portion, Vayetze. Jacob is a refugee of sorts. He faces violence at home, and so with his parents' support, he flees. His parents, Isaac and Rebekah, do not seem to consider removing the threat. Esau is neither expelled from the household, nor is there an intervention to address his anger and reduce the threat of violence. So Jacob, who is by no means innocent, but who has never used violence, leaves his home to avoid becoming a victim of violence. His destination is his uncle Laban's household. It is fitting that he goes to his uncle. Refugees are often supported or housed by relatives, even distant relatives, as they acclimate to their new circumstances. Jacob is immediately welcomed by his uncle Laban. Some commentators argue that Laban was duplicitous from the beginning, but I believe his welcome was sincere. Laban has probably never met this nephew and embraces the chance to care for him. In helping Jacob settle in, Laban offers him wages, and Jacob negotiates for the thing he wants most, Rachel's hand in marriage. But by today's standards, at least, both Laban and Jacob lose track of the ultimate goal of welcoming a refugee. The goal is not to have them live as guests in someone else's house indefinitely. No, the goal is to accomplish one of two things: either to have them establish an independent living situation in their new country, or to find a way back to safety in their country of origin. Laban is too greedy, too enticed by Jacob's willingness to labor for 7 years, and Jacob is so in love with Rachel that the time seems to fly by. He does not make plans for his own independence, and so they go on for too long together. A situation that should have lasted months lasts for 20 years. Until things get so tense between Laban and Jacob that Jacob feels he must steal away without saying goodbye. Arami Oved Avi. Some people translate it as my father was a wandering Aramaean, while others say an Aramaean forced my father to wander. I believe it is the latter. Laban, through his eventual trickery and cruelty, forces Jacob to flee again. This time with 4 wives, 12 children, and countless livestock. Jacob has belongings, but no sense of belonging. And so the turning point of our history, captured in this famous 3-word phrase, is ultimately a refugee story that goes awry. In the end, Jacob becomes independent and he returns to his native land, but his process is less than ideal. As Jews, we feel a compulsion to show kindness to strangers and to welcome the refugee. This impulse is shaped, of course, by our history, and it is nurtured by 3 threads within our Torah: the Exodus, the repeated command to love the stranger, for we were strangers in the land of Egypt, and the Jacob story. Today, the world is facing an immense refugee crisis made worse by the end of the war in Afghanistan this summer. Some refugees are persecuted by the government, and some feel they must flee because of threats of violence by members of their family. Very few of them wish to leave home, were it not for the concerns of their safety. And now it is time to respond, to put our values into action. We must learn from the lessons of our Torah to love the stranger, for the stranger was hated in her native land and is vulnerable now. To provide for those who, like our ancestors fleeing slavery, seek a life of agency and tranquility. And apropos to this Torah portion, to learn the lessons of Jacob, who relied on the assistance of family, but for too long. Jacob's journey to independence is extended, and it poisons his relationship with the person he should be so grateful to. Of course, he has no way of knowing this when he leaves his parents' house in order to take shelter, but we can learn from his example. Every refugee, every young man or woman yearns for that moment of independence. We see from Jacob that it is the moment that that person's story truly begins. Shabbat Shalom. We continue now with the Aleinu, which is found in your Siddur on page 586 at the bottom of the page. Please rise if you are able for the Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, lateit gedula leotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishbechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vigor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu kor'im, ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. We remain standing at this time as we prepare for the Mourner's Kaddish with a reading. This week we marked Kristallnacht, the beginning of the end for the Jews of Europe and turning point in Holocaust history. And to mark Kristallnacht, our introduction before the Mourner's Kaddish, we'll be reading number 9 on page 596. We have lived in numberless towns and villages, and in too many of them we have endured cruel suffering. Some we have forgotten, others are sealed in our memory, a wound that does not heal. 100 generations of victims and martyrs, still their blood cries out from the earth. And so many at Dachau, at Buchenwald, at Baba Yar. What can we say? What can we do? How bear the unbearable or accept what life has brought to our people? All who are born must die, but how shall we compare the slow passage of time with the callous slaughter of the innocent, cut off before their time? They lived with faith, not all, but many, and surely many died with faith in God, in life, in the goodness that even flames cannot destroy. May we find a way to the strength of that faith, that trust, that sure sense that life and soul endure beyond this body's death. They have left their lives to us. Let a million prayers rise wherever Jews worship. Let a million candles glow against the darkness of these unfinished lives. This Shabbat, we remember those for whom we are in the Shloshim 30-day period of mourning. Cynthia Glazer, aunt of Richard Bookbinder and Eleanor Bookbinder. Sandra Woods, friend of Eleanor Bookbinder. Patrick Paul Laverty, remembered by Vera Horowitz. Honora Kaplan, sister of Mary Jane Tucker. Gloria Teitelbaum Moskowitz, mother of Leslie Marsilio and Sherry Rodriguez. and Candido Bejarano, father of Maggie Wallach, and Sandra Chellemer, cousin of Mark Chellemer. We remember as well those whose yahrzeits occurred this week: Jeffrey Bergman, Sharon Bernardic, Lynn Bloomberg, Thomas Allen Blumenfeld, Alan Jeffrey Breston, Mary Canali, Ralph Kralik, Joseph Farb, Harry Filowitz, Harry Friedland, Stanley Goldberg, Eldridge Greenlee, Frida Hecht, Rose Maslin Nieder, Sarah Krappel, Miriam Lee, Debbie Lukowitz, Lawrence Lipsitz, Donald Litwin, Jessica Rosenberg Petrello, Sarah Posner, Ellen A. Reich, Marvin Rosenbaum, Michael Sirota, Beatrice Silberberg, Shirley Solon, Harry Spiegel, Sarah Strassman, Elaine Thayer, Morris Ullman, Giselle Weissman, Golda Weisbard, Mildred Weinberg, Florence Witkin, June Wittershine, Max Wolfson, and Seymour Yegelwell. And on this week, when we mark Kristallnacht, we remember the names of 6 of the 6 million who perished in the Holocaust: Hella Brand of Poland, age 18, Rachela Brand of Poland, age 19, Fable Fuchsen of the Soviet Union, age 26, Yakov Rubinstein of Poland, age 43, Sheva Stern of the Soviet Union, age 59, and Yitzhak Schmidt of Czechoslovakia, age 60. We remember them all. We take them into our hearts with our own as we turn now to page 598 and we join together in the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala v'yizman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mivorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shemei d'kudsha b'richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. It is my pleasure at this time to call upon Karen Wertheimer, a member of our Board of Trustees, to offer Shabbat greetings and announcements. And while Karen is ascending the bima, I can let you at home know that we're going to be doing Kiddush and Motzi in just a minute, so you can listen to Karen and also go to the kitchen to get your Kiddush cup and challah, if you so choose, in preparation for the blessing.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. On behalf of the Board of Trustees, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Shabbat morning service. This Sunday, the congregation is invited to our temple sanctuary for a memorial service to honor the life of longtime member Richard Koffler, beloved husband of Florette Koffler. Refreshments will be served in the social hall. The service will start at 11 a.m. Proof of vaccination is required to attend in person and will also be shown on the temple's live stream page. I would also urge you to take note of the beautiful new art in our hallway as a result of the Koffler's generosity. The first Hanukkah candle is lit on Sunday evening, November 28th. We hope you'll celebrate the Festival of Lights with the community at the following times. Wednesday, December 1st at 5:15, our religious school celebration will be shown on live stream. Friday, December 3rd at 7:30, we'll light the Hanukkah as part of our family service. Sunday, December 5th at 4:30, we'll gather in the parking lot. Each family is encouraged to bring your own Hanukkah to light. We'll have a raffle and enjoy latkes from Ember by Smokey Joe. Eitz Chaim, our junior choir, will sing at all of these events. Look for details in the upcoming email. Thank you this morning to volunteers in the live stream control booth. Ace and Maya Zakin, as well as Michael and Gail Goldberg, are at the controls this morning. Shabbat Shalom.
We have almost reached the conclusion of our service, so it is time for Kiddush and Motzi. I invite you to rise for the Kiddush. And please join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. L'chaim. And we join together in the Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. If you have been watching us on live stream, it is your last chance to post a greeting or a comment in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. And if you have joined us here in the sanctuary, it is your opportunity to conclude the service by turning to someone near you and wishing them Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.